So good morning, Sebastian. A very warm welcome to you. And you
Hi,
are.
Abhinav. Thank you.
Thank you. This is our second interview for our program called Empowering Young Community Leaders 2021. So before we start, how are you doing? How was the day? Like it's early morning in the Argentina.
I'm good. It's 10 a.m. here, and I'm having my first mate of the day. It's a classic drink here of some herbs. So every time I wake up, I have some mate, and it's my first one. So I'm okay. Starting to the day. Okay. What about you?
Starting your day with the interview. So that's great. So let's start with the first question first. Okay. So the first question is, how was Sebastian as a young teenager? Have you seen your eyes were seeing this world as a camera and observing the world from a different creative perspective? How was it?
It's a very good question. Actually, I was really shy. And I think when I started to become a teenager, I started to learn how to be more shy for a long time. But people didn't realize that because I learned how to be social and interact with people. But I used to be to be really an observer, to observe a lot, think a lot. And I used to read a lot when I was very young. I used to read like a lot of books, and I was very introverted and really into reading. Most of my time, I think, I was reading a lot about philosophy, psychology, sociology, any kind of stuff. I was like really into science fiction. I used to read a lot of science fiction when I was really young. The first book that my father gave me was a Ray Bradbury book of science fiction, and I started to read a lot of science fiction. And yeah, I used to be like to have a lot into trying to find answers and meaning. But you know, when a few years ago, I found a text of my teachers when I was 2 years and a half, and it said there that I was all the time acting and using like things as a camera. So it's crazy because I didn't have it so much when I was a teenager, when I was older, because I was really shy for a long time, and then I came back to being creative and having a camera and all this stuff. But for a while, I wasn't. So I found this text when I was 2.5 years old, a few years ago, of my teachers, you know, like 2 papers writing like on hand. And they say that I was all the time making other kids act and perform, and I was like taking photos. And so it was pretty crazy to find that text. Sometimes you have something when you are really a child and something happens maybe and you become more introverted, and then you have to come back to realize who you are, right? and maybe your real interest, it's when you're a kid, and then you say, oh no, I have to be an engineer, I have to do this, and maybe you want to do something different or whatever, or you worked into whatever. And yeah, interesting to find out how you were when you were really young.
And that's true. So you're more like a voracious reader at your early age and a problem solver as well. Like you see the problems and then you try to solve them, you know. So that's a great thing to start as an entrepreneur. So the next question would be, could you please describe us about your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, sure. Before I studied some psychology and sociology before, and in the meanwhile I started to study filmmaking. And when I started to study filmmaking, I was already doing. I learned by myself how to edit, and I was like on high school, I was helping someone else that was doing videos, and I used to go with him and use some camera and do some editing. I did some projects in high school that were like filming and editing. And so when I was in filmmaking school, I already knew how to edit. And in the first 2 months when I started to study cinema after high school, I started to work as an editor in some TV programs. Like I didn't know anything about editing. I didn't study it or anything, but I learned it there. Like, so I had some experience like working on as an editor in TV. They realized afterwards that I didn't know anything, but I learned. I learned on the first days things that I didn't know. You know, I knew how to edit because I learned by myself, but I didn't know how to edit a TV program, or I wasn't a professional, or I wasn't prepared for that. But you never are really prepared, you know. You need to learn doing it sometimes. So yeah, I learned a lot, but first as an editor in TV, and then I started to work in other TV programs, and then I started to film a lot of videos for events, you know, like with my camera. I used to go to and film for events, then for companies. I started to film videos for companies, and I was doing everything, and the lighting, the filming, production, editing. So I learned a lot by doing lots of stuff and making mistakes. And I think when you do the editing, it's quite good to do everything because you learn how to do all the process. So any mistakes that you do, you learn how you need to solve them afterwards on the editing room. So it's quite good that you learn how to do everything, even if you do something else afterwards, you know, like to be able to know how to write, to know how to film, to know how to do the lighting, to direct actors, even how to act, even if you are not an actor, to learn how is it to be an actor, and editing. So yeah, every mistake that you do in the in the shooting, then you need to solve it. So it's quite good that you are the you say, oh, I can't believe it that I did this on the shooting, and then you need to solve it. So you learn a lot by being an integrator of all the things. So yeah, my first my beginnings on the professional journey, yeah, I used to do that. And I worked in lots of things that didn't have anything to do, but make me learn a lot. And I traveled around the world for many years. So I was working on the fields, on, I don't know, in vineyards and in factories. And when I was really young, I started like to do lots of things. So most of the time I was writing a lot. Like, I don't know if this is related to my professional journey, but I used to write a lot about the things that I was observing. So yeah, I think I learned a lot also there by observing and writing and having even on my travels. My idea of doing a filmmaking school for kids came there but yeah, basically my professional journey started working on TV without knowing anything as an editor in TV. Yeah.
Oh, that's a very good professional journey, like editor, writer, and then opening your own academy to teach kids, but you have learned from all your experience. That's a very great thing. So my next question would be about this, like, what was your motivation behind opening this academy, Cineastas del Futuro, if I would have pronounced it correctly? So yeah,
You
so
pronounced it very well.
thank you. So what was your motivation behind?
Well, when I started it, I was traveling around the world. I was traveling for 5 years in Asia, and so yeah, I was in Middle East also, and for 5 years I was in Mexico and many countries. So when I was in Middle East, I had the idea that I saw like the conflict between Palestine and Israel very deeply. I was in Palestine, in Egypt, and Israel, and I had this idea that the kids receive stories, and these stories that they receive from both sides, because I saw that in both sides, that even like, you know, in Egypt, you have lots of books that says things against Israel, and in Israel, you have books, you know, like, and I hear people that their own families were killed, you know, from both sides, that they had an uncle that was killed in the war and stuff like that. So I realized that they all receive stories, and the stories that they receive create behavior. So I started to be very concerned about the issue about how stories are not just something that are entertaining or like are something nice, and are like, I don't know, like you read a book or you see Netflix, or it's not just like entertaining or just education or whatever. It's like how the mind operates. The mind creates behavior, operates through behavior, through the stories that you receive or you tell yourself. Like, so I realized that they really produce individual and collective behaviors. Like even the story that a country or individual or a family tells themselves about something that happened or something that will happen, or about someone else, or even about yourself. If you think you are not enough for something, or you are not good at, or you're bad, or you're whatever you think about yourself, that really produces a behavior. It's not just like a philosophical thing, or it's something that you read that you see in a TED talk and it's quite cool. It's real. Like, you really behave. People kill themselves because of stories they tell themselves, that they might be true, they might not be true, they might be something related to true, but it's just a story, you know? So I think that I thought that kids will receive the story in Palestine and Israel, and these stories will be the ones that make themselves recreate a legendary and big conflict that it hasn't been solved yet, you know? So I thought through teaching kids how to create stories and how stories are created, and to see the mechanisms that are when they receive or they tell a story, so they can be in the fabric of stories. They can. So I wanted to do all this I'm talking is because of this idea. I had the idea of making a documentary about Palestinian and Israeli kids making cinema together. And afterwards, I did some filming. I did a little workshop here in Argentina when I was here, to start to get something out of it and get funds to do the documentary. It was something, just an idea that I had. I was working on something else, but I say, hey, let's do it and see what happens. And I did a video about that, and many people started to see that video, and they were like, whoa, the kids were really happy about it. Also, the parents of the kids that came to this workshop, they were like, we want to do more workshops like this. Lots of kids will want to do that. So then I went to Mexico, and in Mexico, I have someone that saw the video, that talks with someone, and I started suddenly to have lots of students in Mexico and lots of kids, and it started to spread out. So suddenly I had I was giving lots of filmmaking workshops for kids. I wasn't planning to do that, but suddenly I had more and more. And then I came back to Argentina. In Argentina, I have more kids. The government hired me to do more workshops, and we were in Lollapalooza, that it's like a very big musical event. And we started to work with companies and with the kids of companies, and we started to have lots of students suddenly. So yeah, then we were recognized in Salzburg Global Seminar, and then in Korea also, where we knew each other, and yeah, suddenly started to grow. And I realized that there were not many filmmaking or content creation schools for kids. There are not many right now even. And yeah, that's how yeah, that's the motivation behind of why I started this. Mainly it's because I realized the power of the power that stories have in behavior, basically the connection between mind, stories, and behavior, and especially why kids, because kids first they have a neurological and ability, they are more open to change their stories them themselves, even neurologically, not just because it's easier for them. They don't have so many stories, and they will receive a story that they are not choosing to receive a story. And they are gonna be the future leaders. They are gonna be politicians. They are gonna be mathematicians. They are gonna be actors, lawyers, and everything else. Not someone else, but they are gonna be the future leaders of the world. So I thought it was quite important that their behavior it's conscious, and they can create a story that they want to do with the world, because the stories they create in their mind or that they received without not being aware of, they will create behavior. So mainly that's the motivation behind it.
I think it's a very brilliant idea and a great motivation behind it. So fostering kids' creativity and then using that creativity as a messenger for peace to solve the conflict between two nations. I think it's a very brilliant idea. So like, is the only change you want to make through this organization, this academy, the peace, or it's something else behind it, or something different perspective as well?
Mainly what I want to, the change I want to produce, if if it's possible, I want to create the space. Well, that's what we are trying to do, at least now, but a space for creators that they are able to empower and collaborate, that they can learn, an education space that they can learn to think by themselves, also that they can have self-knowledge, that they can learn how to, because now what we are doing is we are changing the idea of just filmmaking and content creation, and the concept is going to be creators, that it's going to be more creators, can be an entrepreneur, can be architect, can be many other things that are not just video. So what we want to create is like a community and a space where kids can have their own space, where they can create, not just that we give workshops and we just teach them something, because I think with the creative process of whatever they want to do, but also like the community and the space where they can have themselves learn with other kids. And for example, now what we are doing is like any kid can ask and register something that they in a calendar, and they can teach something to all the community, for example. And that's something new that we are applying now, that any kid can teach something and learn by teaching. So in the community, the idea is that they are able to do and produce stuff, and not just to receive, that they can, I want to teach how to do this, and okay, you have the space, you can do that, and you have a community, and you can give something back to the community. So I think what I want to change is that just to create the space where they can, because I think the best moments that I see on the learning process is when the teacher doesn't have to do anything, and the kids are motivated, and they are in creating a city of 3 chapters. So they are working by groups. So they are working by themselves, and the best moments are when the teacher doesn't have to do anything, and they are just so motivated that they are into creating something that you don't need. They don't need you. You just need to be there just for whatever in case. But the best moments of learning for me is when the teacher doesn't have to be there. because and they have the tools and they will learn by themselves on how to solve the problem. So I think this is the space I want to create. And also, if they can have these tools and this space, I think one of the most important things that I want to create from there is that they start from themselves to express themselves, to understand themselves better, and in this creative process. And I believe that the change of the world is not by politics or changing a society or a country, but changing then your community, then maybe the country, and then maybe the world. I think most of the people are just, we are trying to change the world and whatever, and you cannot make your own bed, and you don't have a good relationship with your parents, or like your neighborhoods. And it's like, maybe just start with something simple, then we can maybe change the community, your neighborhood, make something good for someone that is close to your house, And I think that's what I want to achieve with kids, that they can understand that first they need to start, they need to start with themselves, and what they have close to them. It's quite simple, like just make your parents happy, or just like your neighborhoods, your friends, try to help them wherever, like, try to solve issues that you have close to you. And with this creators community, what I want to do is that kids are able to do that. For example, now something we are planning to do soon is that kids can teach older people cinema. So they learn by teaching, and also they can teach how to do filmmaking and other things to older people that maybe, so they can have a relationship that with older people that maybe don't have they are bored, or they don't have something to do, and they can come back to the idea of older people being wise, and that they can have it. So and kids also really need role models, like, so, and older people in all traditions were like role models and people with lots of experience and knowledge. And that's something I want to achieve, that it's more like a space than just a class, or that's what I want to change. If your question was what I want to change with this, is to create a space where kids can change themselves, and then their communities, families, and maybe the world, but first by themselves.
That's very well said. Like working on simple thing first, and then you take the big problem to solve it. So that's a very innovative way to do that. And so, yeah, like another question would be, like, as we all know that there is no a straight path to success. We all face some hurdles, right? In our career, in our journey to achieve something, to be a change maker. So we would like to know more about the problem part. Like, what problem have you faced in your entrepreneurial journey, and how did you overcome it?
Okay. I didn't just face them in the past. I'm facing them right now. Every day I have to take decisions that are quite complicated, and I have to deal with my own mind having doubts about if this is right, if I have to do this or other things, or also having to take decisions about risks, like you take a decision and maybe it doesn't work. So also deal with people. It's quite complicated, like when you have more people in your team, like you need to really learn how to deal with people, and they all have emotions, you have emotions, and some people don't have a good day. And what I try to do is every time try to get back to the vision, like like try to get back when you are in problems, or like you don't have everything is complicated, and having a startup is quite complicated. It's much more complicated than what we see in YouTube videos, all the good things. it is really good, but it's also really complicated. It's not so easy. It's worth it, but it's not for everyone, and it's not so fun all the time. As you see Steve Jobs, when Steve Jobs went through really complicated things. It's not so easy, but well, life is not easy, and that's the nice part. Otherwise it would be boring, right? But yeah, you have to deal with people and learn how to communicate and have a good communication with them. Even if things don't work or whatever, you need to have a emotional ability to understand if someone is not in a good day. Also, the government is quite complicated. You need to deal with changes of the government, especially, I don't know, in my country at least, it's quite a mess, and it's quite complicated, and they have lots of changes all the time, and they don't help you to, if you want to do something that you want to create something that it's behind that is worldwide, that you need to do lots of things. So they really don't help you most of the time, and it's quite complicated. And I think also you need to learn a lot of things that you don't know about. So like marketing, management, lots of things. And mainly the main thing that I need, I work on myself to go through. It's like all internal fears, I don't know, to rejection, to failure, and even to success. That all these emotions, I think most of the things are like emotional, like, because if you are like strong emotionally and focused, you can deal with things, like, so yeah, most of the issues I face are not in the past, but are every day, like, internal fears, or I need to take decisions and I don't know what to do. And many times you are alone, like, it's not so easy to even if you don't have partners, like, you need to take decisions, and you have a lot of people that those decisions will affect, and it's a lot of responsibility sometimes. So yeah, I answer the problems that I face in the present, not just in the past, but but yeah, all the things.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I agree with that point. Like, it looked fancy to become an entrepreneur, but it is not an easy, a piece of cake for everyone, right? So it takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and you have to build a lot of resources for yourself.
I guess having kids or whatever you do is complicated, and it's good, but it's complicated, Otherwise, nobody will have kids, It's complicated to have a kid, but it's worth it.
Yeah,
Like, but yeah, it's not simple.
that's true. That's true. I completely agree with your point. So I understand it. So it's been a brilliant interview. So we have reached the end of the interview. So any last message do you want to deliver to the global youth for the inspiration to this journey?
Oh, can I answer something before that, related to the question before?
Yeah, of course. Why not? Please go ahead.
That I think to go through all this, the journey of entrepreneur, like, the main thing is to have a why, a motivation, because all the other things, if you have a motivation, you can go through that, and you can read, you can talk with lots of people. Like, what I do is to talk with people that know more about know more than me, like, lots of people are able to help you, because I said all the things about the bad things, but also I wanna say something about the good things of doing a startup. And I think it's really important that you learn about everything. As I said before, in filmmaking, like, you need to learn about sales, about marketing, about product development, about finance, business administration. You need to learn about everything, because even if you don't do it afterwards, most of the startups, you need to do it at the startup. You need to do everything. You need to clean the floor. You need to do everything. You need to be in everything. So I think it's really good that you learn a little bit about everything and talk with people that already went through that. and many people, most of the people, if you talk to them, they will help you, like, most of the times, you know, like some people don't ask for help, but if you talk with people, even if they are famous or you think they won't have time, usually they do, and maybe they don't have so much time, but they do have they do want to help, and they do, if you are sincere and ask for help or for advice, people will help you. And also I think that it's really good to have a methodologies, like there are many methodologies that work, and they give you a framework to learn about. It's not that you won't make mistakes, but methodologies of startups, or like, you know, there are many methodologies of how to work with a team, or even lean startup model, or customer development, or many things like that, that all the mistakes that you make, if you are having a methodology, they become part of the process, that because you will make mistakes, and it's not bad, it's part of the methodology that you will fail and you will make mistakes. So if you have a framework, I think that's really good, because you can learn from it, and it's when you make a mistake or you do something that doesn't work, you will say, okay, I learned from it, and it's part of the process. And you know, and so I think it's really good to have these kind of things and read books and methodologies, because you can see in a framework what you are doing, and you say, oh, okay, I did a mistake. I thought this product was going to work, or this marketing, or this was going to work, and it didn't. And the methodology gives you tools to say, okay, it didn't work because maybe of this, and I can change that, and I can talk with people, and I can change this, and try again, and try to see if it works. As a scientist, you know, like you make a model, even having a methodology. Without a methodology, it looks random. With a methodology, it's part of the process. And in the process, also, you can make models, so you don't have to make the mistakes so bad. And so you can have a model, test it with a MVP, for example. You do something that is quite not so complex, and don't invest so much time and money on that, and test it. And you see if your model, if your hypothesis is valid, and you don't lose so much time and money and make such big mistakes, you know. So I think it's really, really good to learn about different methodologies of sales, startups, marketing, or whatever, so you can have a framework, so things don't look random, and so you can learn about the process, and you can reduce the risks mainly. It's not that you won't have them, but you will reduce them by having a methodology that is like a scientist. You know, you make an hypothesis, you make a model, you test it, and you see, and you change, you come back to the hypothesis, and you change the hypothesis if it's not working.
Yeah, that's
sorry, I wanted to
that's a very
come
brilliant
back, because I say so many bad things.
No, that's
so many bad things about the startup, about all the bad things, and I wanted to say the good things also. It's really good also.
And you have put it like in a very brilliant way. Like, I really love this, all those things, like being a researcher, and you are testing your hypothesis, and then working on it, then improvising it. It's a brilliant thing. So now it comes to the last thing. Any messages you want to give to the global youth from your side?
Okay, if what I will say is that you can make intelligent mistakes by all the things like methodologies, and like make mistakes. It's really important to do things. Most of my life, there are many things I didn't do because I was afraid, or I had doubts, and I didn't want to make a mistake. So what I would say is, like, make intelligent mistakes, make big mistakes. Just don't try to make the most intelligent mistakes that you can. You can if you have a frame, for example, with a methodology, you can make intelligent mistakes. It's not a mistake, do stupid things, but in an intelligent way. Also, I think it's really, really important, more important than anything else, to work on yourself, on your emotions, on expressing yourself, learn how to express yourself, and have a and be afraid and act anyway, you know. But I think one of the main things in everything in life is to work in yourself. Like, it's not a philosophical thing, but to really observe your emotions, and be kind of others. If you are not kind with others, try to check why you are not being kind with others and try to repair that, and try to improve your your social skills, and try to, if you say something and you hear people, try to see why, and try to see there is an emotion in you that it's making you act this way, or why. Like, so I think if most of the people we work on ourselves, most of the problems of the world will be repaired. Most of the time we are trying to change the world or other people, but it's quite complicated to change ourselves because we don't see it. We are inside ourselves. So, and also I think it's very important to give first, always, like to not to stop like all the time wanting something from you, and to give something to someone like without even thinking, you know, like, I don't know, buy a chocolate and give it to someone, you know, like and do something meaningful. Like, don't worry so much about yourself, and try to do something that has some meaning, and on the long term, not just a short term. And just solve simple problems, you know, like really don't do something quite big of changing the world. First, try to do something very, very simple and that you can solve. I don't know, give food to someone on the street one day. Like, if you're in a bad day, or you're depressed, whatever, it's just like do something, and it helps you, and you get out of it. And whatever you do that gets you out of your mind. And I don't know, for me, meditation is quite a tool that makes me observe my emotions, observe my mind, and try to solve your own shit before trying to change something outside, you know, like, and before going out to the outside world, like, and do stupid things, I don't know, have a bad face, or say something even if you don't realize, to someone on the street. If you meditate, try to get your own shit together before doing things outside. If most of the politicians will like just try to do that a little bit in the morning before going out and doing what they do outside, maybe the world will be a little bit better. So and yeah, and try to be kind with yourself and with your family and your friends before trying to change the world and do a revolution and change everything. That's what I will say. Like, I think we all have to first try to do simple things and get our shit together first before going out of before opening the door of your house and getting out. Try to a little bit try to observe yourself and try to get your shit together. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's all are very lovely points, you know. So change begins from yourself, and don't get afraid from making mistakes. So, and even you have given advice to politicians as well. So that's a good thing. Like, you should be kind, compassionate, as I will say to that word. Like, compassion is that word that we all should have in this life toward the other human beings. And that's what makes us different. So it's been a very, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
No, usually when we are not, it's because something is emotionally inside us. Probably we have an issue, you know, like, otherwise you are kind. Usually you are not kind when something
happening wrong,
or if someone does something bad to you, or like you can be strong and react, you know, but most of the time it's like you're having a bad day, something bad happened, and you react badly, or you don't say something that is nice or whatever. It's maybe because you had an issue.
That's true.
Try to solve it before going out of your house.
Exactly. And
it's better.
Is a good way to overcome that thing. So you really advised it very well there. So it was very insightful interview, Sebastian. I really loved it, like each part of it. And you really explained everything clearly. So it's a pleasure having you here. And we as a community of global leaders would like to say you good luck for your future endeavors. And we hope like you achieve good and great things and you get success in achieving your mission, the change you want to bring in the community. Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to having you here. So I'm going to stop recording now.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.